I am on a mission to shine light on Black excellence, to discover and reveal the excellence that is all around us in our culture, our community, and in our stories. And today we find it in Atlanta, Georgia, with a panel of Black thought leaders who share their values, experiences, insights, and perspectives on mental health, mentorship, and raising Black boys. A mentor is someone who helps you discover the value inside of yourself. Everyone needs someone. You can't do it alone.
Want to cry because I'm hurting about that. If I want to tell my brother, hey man, I love you, man, I have to start doing that. And the reason why we don't do that is because the systemic racism, that the Willie Lynch thing that was put in place to emasculate us into thinking that me telling my brother I love him, I appreciate him, I adore him, I recognize him. Because I wasn't raised off love. I was raised off survival. My mom, God rest her soul, didn't tell me she loved me that I can remember until I was in prison. And that's the first time I remember that. You understand? So for me, that was another confirmation that I have to exist in my masculinity and that expressing my emotions was femininity. You know what I'm saying? So yeah. I think to deal with our mental health, and I'm going to cut it off, is to break the chains. Express what you feel, no matter who you're expressing it to. I spoke at the Trayvon Martin Foundation and I told my story and I cried in front of thousands of men because that's the emotion that came over me. So whatever emotion come up, it's not weak. You know what I'm saying? If we can express anger, that's an emotion. If we can express love, that's an emotion. Why can't we express sorrow? Empathy for our own situation and for others. So with that, I'll pass the mic.
I think that's good, man, because it doesn't make a man weak to acknowledge and talk about his fears and anxieties, especially when existing in a world where Black lives are devalued. And we have so many different elements of that can cause that depression, and those fears and anxieties. But we can work through these fears and worries by talking with other men. Now, this is what I believe, whether they're friends, fathers, siblings, mentors, or therapists. So not only do we need healthy spaces to process, unpack, and heal, but we also need an actual person or people to confide in. So I'm going to ask Cody and then James just to start this one. Are you a mentor in someone's life, or do you have mentors? And how important is it for Black men to have mentors?
I think it's key. I think it's a pivotal point in your growth to acknowledge that you need to utilize people placed around you to better inform you of decisions that are coming in your life, as well as to just give counsel when you need to speak to someone. And then it's one-sided if you're only using somebody for that, if you're not being there for someone else, right? So there's always an opportunity to be a mentor to someone. And so I think I've always done my best to let people know I'm approachable and accessible and available to lend my story, my advice, or just my belief and direction to whatever they have going on. But I think it's key to have acknowledge that you don't know everything.
Yeah,
that's number one. It's the humbling of yourself to say, I can avoid pitfalls of others by leveraging the people of God's place in my life.
Is I suck at connecting with other men who could be mentoring me. I'm bad at that. I admit that 110,000%.
Thanks for your transparency, my brother.
But the craziest thing about that statement is, as a basketball coach, I probably connect with more lives than people do in their lifetime. And I have been doing it since I gave my life to this game, to the coaching aspect. I tell people this: my life is not my own. I can't move the same way. I can't think the same way. My decision making is different because I'm at the helm of young men's lives who look at me not only in game situation when it's the fourth quarter and they looking at me for direction, but off the court how I handle myself.
I like it, man. I like it. So, did anybody else want to chime in on that? Are you a mentor? Do you have mentors? And how important is it for Black men to have mentors relative to maintaining mental and emotional wellness?
Yeah, I chime in. I don't have mentors, but I do. I read a lot of books. So of course,
Unofficial mentors.
I say, huh?
I said they're unofficial mentors.
Yeah, so I say, I would say Creflo Dollar, my mentor, Dr. Miles Monroe, Napoleon Hill. I would say those guys are my mentors, but, I've never met them. And I would also say Christ is my mentor. But I just want to say something that Christ did say in the Bible. Man, he said, make friends with people in the world, because, I think it's in Matthew. He said, you never know when you'll need them. So most people, most Christians, we turn our nose up at people that's not in the same box we are in. But even Christ said in the word that you make friends with them, meaning, they can be your mentor. They don't have to believe what you believe as far as your belief in religion, but they got something that you want, though. When you ever fall on your face, you can reach out to that mentor, and he can help you pick yourself up. So I say just always keep friends in all different circles. Don't ever turn your nose up at anybody, because you never know when you might need them.
I like it. I like it. Anybody else? And welcome to the call, Pastor Reggie.
Thank you, brother. I just wanted to speak on that for a minute. To what Mr. Williams was saying, man, so key. What he said was so correct. You need to have a relationship with people in culture, people out of the culture, people that are religious, people that are Christians, people that are Muslims, people that are Buddhists. You need relationships, right? And there's so many times that you can move towards your destiny out of relationships and not out of agreement. Everyone don't have to agree with you on what it is that your relationship is in terms of Christ in the same context that you do, and or believe what you believe. But you got to be able to connect with people in a way in which you see value in them and they see value in you, and you can move into those relationships and they can help you grow and you can help them to understand where you're coming from. Because I truly believe that you can grow as a mentee, and a mentor can grow from the mentee as well. And I just think that relationships, and God is the founder and the creator of relationships, so they're necessary. They're necessary for your well-being, your mental capacity, your mental state, and they're necessary for your destiny and your purpose in life. So having great relationship and fostering those great relationships are key, and making sure that you connect with people of diverse backgrounds and different ethnic groups is key to where you're headed.
Definitely. I was gonna say real quick, one of the best, well, I guess a quote, but one of the best things that I ever heard was said, a fool is his own advisor. Only a fool is his own advisor. So I think mentorship is extremely important. And I think if everybody grasps that, if we can pass that message on to everybody, it can be a perfect cycle. As much as you're pouring into somebody else and mentoring them, there should be somebody pouring back into you to mentor you. And if that continues that cycle, we're all being lifted. You know what I'm saying? So I think it goes both ways. I think if you are mentoring somebody, just like James was saying, I think it's imperative, James, that you be mentored, even if it's like what my brother said, it might not be people that you actually know or met. Like some of the people that he named, I could say, yeah, those are my mentors too. I never met them though, but just through their words and through their wisdom and through their advice, maybe through their books or whatever it is that they're doing, they can still be your mentor to pour back into you. And I think if we can keep that cycle going of pouring out and being pouring back into, that we'll definitely, rise and get better overall.
What I wanted to say, listening to the brothers, I think the biggest trick that has been played on us, and I don't want none of the brothers to take it wrong way, is the religious trick. Because when we meet people, an old dude told me this a long time. He said, when the students show up, a teacher will appear. So anytime we walk into the world and we're receptive to growth and change, we can always learn. We can learn from anybody. Like the old saying, Mr. Window. You remember the old Mr. Window?
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's how, but the society we live in, if you don't have images of success, people don't want to, you're not gravitated to. And so I'm going to go somewhere with this. The religious trick is that if you're not Christian, you're not Muslim, you're not Jewish, you're not this, you're not that, then we're not considered my brother per se. You understand? So religion was created in a divisive method for here in America after the slavery, after all of the things that happened to us, because everything that's going on right now was a systemic plan and it was a diabolical plot for us to be exactly how we are. Make no mistake about it. So we as individuals, no matter what our religious preference is, we have to leave that. We got to compartmentalize who we're going to be when we go into society, because so many of us want to move around like we're religious monks. And so when we meet people, we're not receptive to that partnership. We can still connect because we're connecting on the things that we have in common. Always remember, it's the common bond that keeps anything together.
So this is what I'm hearing, because even with RJ, what he was saying about being, we got to be poured into, and we have to pour out. So it's our experiences. And what you're saying is, if all you have is religious experiences poured into you, then guess what? When you run into someone, that's all you're going to pour out to them. And so in order to be a balanced person in this life, we understand that there are, like I said, you can learn from anyone. Man, I can learn from the guy on the street. So my point to that, to tie it into what you were saying, Dontrell, is that there is a system out there, man, and that in order for us to rise above it and to be free from it, even when it comes to our mental issues, and even when it comes to being able to pour into other people, we got to detach ourselves from this one lane mentality, thinking that, you know, that's the end all be all. And so I think to be mentors, to pour into someone else, you have to have other information poured into you. Because when I meet that kid who doesn't know anything about church, he's living with a single mother, his father is gone, then I can't give him Jesus immediately, because maybe he's turned off by church. But I've got to find something that connect with him, whether it's my past experience when I ran with gangs, whether, you know, when I was incarcerated for a little time, was it when I was smoking weed, you know, when I was running the street, when I was dealing with women. I got to find something that can connect with him to where I don't just overload him with what I think he needs from a spiritual perspective. But we can get to that at a point once I develop a relationship with him, which leads me into my next question. I'm going to shoot this to you first, Cody. The importance of a Black man's presence and his active involvement in the life of a young Black male is crucial. Now, I've been reading some statistics, read an article today where some of the statistics are actually manipulated to make us think that a Black man has no chance at success and being a productive citizen of society if his father is missing in action. That's a total lie. There are so many men who are absolute great, successful people and well-rounded and well-balanced, and they didn't have a father in the home. Now, it heightens the risk of success or the potential for success when he is there, but we know it's important for a man, a Black male, to have that father figure, but it's not absolutely necessary, because, you know, as we talked about, mentors can help shape him. But is it our duty and responsibility as Black men who have made it to a place where we've learned and matured to seek out opportunities to be mentors to younger Black males who live with single mothers or lack the presence of a male role model? Is it our duty to seek them out, or should those single mothers be, or whoever's the guardian of those children, be seeking us out? So I want to throw that at you first, Cody, and you let me know, and you just share with us what your perspective is on that. Because they need someone, but does it matter how we engage them? Do we find them, or do they find us?
Okay, I think you have to be open to receiving from whatever avenue it comes. I think it's more organic if the Black male reaches out when he identifies opportunities to be a mentor for somebody who may be lacking that influence in their life. But I also think as a single mother, you are tasked with that responsibility of understanding the things you can't pour into your young son, that when you identify someone that you would like him to emulate characteristics or ideals or direction from, that you can put them in a place to be mentored. You know, like there are mentor programs that I think, if you're a single mother, maybe you should look into 100 Black Men or things like that too, or your church, to have people mentor your son, but also as a black man, you have to make yourself available to the community. You know, to me, my role as a black man isn't just to parent my child. You
Take
know,
the village, right?
It's to be the image of what a black man is to someone who doesn't have that image readily available. For example, I'll say this. When I grew up, everybody on the block called my dad Pops. Now, on the whole block, there might have been 4 dads in total. But all the kids knew if you needed something in the neighborhood, you need a patch on your bike, you need somebody to put air in your inner tube, like he was the man in the neighborhood that took care of everybody. And did he have to do it? Nope. But that's who he was. He made himself available for the people that were lacking just that small piece of something to complete their adolescence. And so I feel like that's my same task. And so, though I coach as well, and I coach on a much younger level than James does. You know, I coach the same age my kids are. So I started in kindergarten, and I'm up to coaching middle schoolers. But you know, I always try to present myself and let them know, like when they see me, to understand this is a black man. This is how he carries himself. This is the imagery that I may be lacking, but this is what it looks like.
I like it. I like it. Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, can I?
Go ahead, James. RJ next. RJ next.
The village, in those situations, I agree with Cody. I don't think there's no one size fits all formula for that particular kid's case. I think the best thing for a kid like that is his village, however that comes. I have a son. He's 3 years old, but my son has an amazing village around him that I don't take for granted, that's going to help me raise him. And that was important for me. His mother and I, she's a part of a church family that I know the people there, I know what he's getting around, and then when he's around me. But I also play the other side of that in that I have a lot of kids. I'm gonna have a kid right now whose mom, this kid's is one of the top 150 players in his classification. His mother, she takes care of him and his little brother, and he's known because of who his dad was and who his uncle was in the basketball community. But I'm around him for 7 months out of the year more than anybody else. So I understand I have influence on that kid. And I understand that I'm a part of a lot of kids' village, and I may not be, directly mentoring them, but like I said earlier, for me, it's just knowing that what the responsibilities that come with whatever I consider myself to be is tremendous in the lives of so many kids, because you tend to look back, and there's kids that are going to the NBA now that I coached 4 or 5 years ago, and I can still hit them up, and they're NBA draft prospects. I can hit them up, and it's like the endearment that they have for me is glowing because of the impact that I had on their life. And they got single moms, and they doing it for their moms, or they doing it for their culture, or however the kids say it now. But like, I just agree with Cody so much. That village, the people you have in that village is almost just as key and important. And the last thing I'll say as far as that, for me, I didn't get my village until I was 22 years old. And it wasn't until I got around men who were husbands and fathers that I understood what a husband and father was at 22, 23 years old, seeing that. And then it was those same guys that kind of pushed me through my middle 20s, now going into my late 30s, almost going 2 years away from 40. That same village of people are still around me. You know what I mean? And that's why I say, for me, it's important. I don't want my voice to be my son's only voice, and I value that there could be other men in his life, and I don't feel no ego or I'm not threatened. I want him to meet Dontrell, so Dontrell can put some, fire into my son. Like, I would be so cool with that, because that's an aspect that I can't bring to him, and I want him to be so well rounded. But my son knows who his daddy is, and that was important to me becoming a father. 4 years ago, I wanted my son to know who my father was, because I didn't. So that was my important piece. But I'm also glad that he has a village around him that's phenomenal. You know, and that's not gonna steer him. Or if he does get out of pocket, there are people that I communicate to, like, hey, if you see this knucklehead doing something, you can yoke him up. Like, you have that ability.
Just back to what you were saying, Terry. I think it's an exception to every rule. My father passed away when I was 7, almost 8 years old, died of an aneurysm, and I was raised in a single parent home with my mother. And you know, she did the best she could. Would I have rather had a father growing up? Absolutely. But I think that where we are today, no young Black male should be without a father figure, you know, because it goes back to what we're saying about mentorship. And if you listen to somebody I consider one of my mentors, Dr. George Frazier, when he talks about the plight of the Black man and how do we go forward, one of his mandates is that we all should find a young Black male to mentor. And I don't think it's a difficult thing. You know, it can just be as simple as, you know, we all got somebody in our family to start with that doesn't have a father figure or doesn't have a father in their home or whatever the case may be, or somebody in our neighborhood. But to answer your other question, I don't think it's the responsibility of the single mothers to seek us out, because some of these single mothers, A, they don't know to do that. B, they're so busy with working and trying to provide a household and finances and, you know, all of that type of stuff that they might not even have the time or know who to seek out, because, you know, unfortunately, we don't live in a perfect world. So some women don't trust men, and they got trauma and they got issues. So I think it's us having to, if it's not a family member or whatever the case may be, it's us slowly kind of working ourselves in. Of course, if you got kids, it may be easier, because if they got friends, then you know, hey, your son's friend, take them to the park when you take your son. For me, who doesn't have kids, I remember back when I lived in an apartment complex, I would come home every day and I would watch this lady and her little boy. You know, she would be throwing the ball to him, and I could just see on her face, like, I really don't want to be doing this. But I mean, I didn't know if she was a single mother or not, but I would never see anybody else out there in the little courtyard area with them. And one day I'm getting in the car and I was just like, I don't really know how to, you know, I don't want her to think I'm trying to holler at her. You know, I don't really know how to do this. But I kind of walked up and I said, hey, how you doing? I introduced myself and I said, man, I made a joke or something like, man, I said, you got a good fastball. You know, I said, you mind if I toss the ball to him a little bit? He was probably about 8 or 9, you know, or so. And I kind of started developing that relationship. You know what I mean? And I started, then every time I would see him, I would be able to say something. And it started to create an avenue to where I got her to be a little bit more trusting of this strange man, you know, and I became a mentor to that young man. So I think mentorship is key. I think it's something that we got to do. And I think at this point, every young Black man, there's somebody that he can have in his life that represents a father if he doesn't have one.
I like that. Pastor Reggie, did you want to chime in on that one?
Absolutely, man. What the brothers are saying, all the brothers are saying is so correct. I remember when I started, I was mentored back in the day. I come from a single parent home. My dad died when I was 4 years old. So my mother had 6 kids, raised them by herself. She worked 2 jobs. She was a police officer, and 2 jobs for me to go to college. So I know what it feels like to have a mentor, and I wanted to mentor. So when I got over in the South Cobb, they asked me to become a mentor, right? I was thinking about it. Then I got the phone call and said, would you be a mentor? It was like, but I started first at, let me go back a little bit. I started first mentoring kids at church. I started in youth ministry, mentoring kids in the youth ministry. And then some bright little squatty 3rd grader came to me and said, I want to play the video game. And I told him, I said, well, you need to learn this book before I let you play the video game. Then months went by. He told his mom, I want that dude to be my father. Now that kid is the starting running back for the Ohio State University. All right. Got his undergrad degree and worked on his master's. He was just a kid playing football at Sprayberry. Now we're getting ready for the NFL draft. You can have an impact on a kid's life.
Yeah.
Then it went from there to now connecting with athletes at Ohio State, athletes at Oklahoma, University of Oklahoma, and talking to them and putting programs together with them to getting them for when they go to the next level, they could keep their finances and understand their finances and know how to invest. And they never know that all of that would come out of that, right? So the need is great.
Yeah.
The need is so great. Now 100 Black Men of Atlanta is involved. So then I get with Chief Magistrate Judge, connect with him. He says, his problem is, hey, I don't have enough mentors in Cobb, and I'm getting tired of sentencing 14, 15, 16, 17-year-old boys. But we don't have a program that we can send boys to. And I'm like, hearing all of this, and we know, we're all Black men, we know that the highest percentage of boys that are incarcerated looks like us. So we need to be reaching these kids. I love what James is doing as a coach. Man, coaches have so much influence, positive influence for kids. They do, man. And they just want to be loved. They want to be treated right, because they're coming with problems. They're coming from different backgrounds, different ideologies. They're coming from different structures and homes. Some have structure, some have no structure. Some have older brothers that are influencing them to do the wrong thing. You got all of this stuff going on. So we need mentors really, really, really bad. We got to get involved with these kids.
We do.
We have really no choice, man.
And as you said,
Can I chime in, cuz?
Yeah. Go ahead. We'll swing it over to you. And then I have one last question that I'm going to throw out after you're done, Trail.
Last year, through the Trayvon Martin thing, one of my friends, Rod Mack, he wanted to the big wigs with the Little League football, and I told him, round it up. We got an auditorium at Florida Memorial University, and me and another dude that I did time with, we wanted to speak to all the kids in the Little League program. But my thing was, as much as we need mentors for the kids, a lot of inner city parents need mentors too. So I told them, for every kid that comes, make sure your parent stays, so that they will get the message too. Because a lot of parents just want to drop their kids off, and it comes from the home. Because my ex-wife, she's a school teacher, K-8. She got 55 fifth graders. Not one read on the 5th grade level. 2 read on the 3rd grade level. The rest of them read on the 1st and 2nd grade level. These 5th graders, these are the people. And in Florida, right, Jeb Bush used to be the governor. You know how they based the prison beds that they would build? Based on the 3rd graders that failed the FCAT.
That's right.
So they made the prison bed. So when they built the new prison, they said, okay, we got to project it, blah, blah, 12,000 kids. So guess what? Because now they done, as a publicly traded company, Michael Jordan, a whole bunch of list of other celebrities invest in private prisons. In Florida, I know in Florida, I don't know about in Georgia and other states, but in Florida, every other month they opening a different prison. Yeah. Because the agenda has already been set. So what I did was, I want to get through to the kids, but I want to get to the root of it, because my ex-wife was telling me what's the essence of it. These kids are not reading. And that go back to what traditionally is indoctrinated. The old saying is, you know how to keep something from a black man is to do what? Put it in the book. But we wasn't allowed to read anything other than the Bible. And if you got caught reading anything, and if you got caught reading that without supervision, you was killed. So that, is built in our ethos. And as it comes down to us generationally, that's still indoctrinated in the inner city community. So the parents are not actively involved. So I told my friend, for every kid that comes, we was giving out things like, gift bags and different souvenirs and different things like that, food, gift cards. So when they come, we wanted the parents to attend. 167 kids. How many parents you think were actually there? 23.
Yeah.
You know what's happening in our communities? The parents are not invested in their kids.
It is, as someone even said, that sometimes it can be that even when you're mentoring, that what happens is some, not all, will take that as a free opportunity for me just to break free from the responsibilities that I have as a parent for a while, because now I have this, this gentleman who's mentoring my son, and I can, just kind of just push him off. But there are some who really understand the need for it, and that relationship is mutual, and they understand the importance of it. But even with the grading, the educational school system, we're in a fight in Talladega, Alabama, that's directly tied into some of those statistics that Dontrell talked about, where there is a incompetent and visionless white superintendent who is superintending the board or the school system for a majority, over 70% Black student population. And he has shown racist tendencies. He's made racial comments and things like that. So anyway, we're in this fight to get this guy out so that we can provide the children in that school system with a quality education. And so even if they go to the community college, that's fine, and further education, but they're probably going to end back up in the community. And so it just creates this whole cycle, man, like that system, that school to prison pipeline, all of that is engrafted into that. And that's, I believe, why, we've got to infiltrate it. And one man can't do it alone. That's why, it takes a village to raise a child. But I wanted to ask this last question based on what we're seeing going on in society as it relates to social justice. And I know a lot of the things that we're seeing with the images just rolling and constantly being fed through the timelines of social media. For those of you who have children, I want you to speak to it from the perspective of how you're affected by it, and how do you guard yourself from being just fed all of these, this information, and how do you process it and balance it without allowing it to just overtake you, to make you angry, to make you go to this place where, you're just mad at the world, and, and you just get overloaded with it. And how, if you have children, how do you balance that with your children?
I figured you were gonna ask something like this. I didn't. I have a 3-year-old, so he's oblivious to the world that's outside, that's waiting for him. But as a 37-year-old father, I had a stepfather who, for a short time, introduced me to history that wasn't in school books. So I was kind of woke before I probably should have been woke.
Right.
And I've been woke for a long time. So I'm understanding. So as I'm watching everything unfold, it's a little surreal to me to see how people are reacting, because my response is the system is doing exactly what it was created to do. It's a divisive system that was created to strip us of identity. And when you get stripped of identity, you don't have cultural influence, you don't have generational influence, you don't have economic influence. And even after Reconstruction, as Black people in the 20s and 30s tried to establish generational influence, economic influence, you get to the 60s with the Vietnam War, you send a lot of Black men over to Vietnam, they come back, you don't allow them access to VA loans and things that establish foundational houses.
Yeah.
And so you separate the family again. So now you introduce women's liberation. Now you separate. Now you got men who are on narcotics coming back from Vietnam, aren't taking care of the family, and you got women who had to step into the role. So now you divide the family. It's a trick that's been going on, since we were brought up, since we came over through the chattel slavery. Because the truth of the matter is, Africans came over to these states, to North America, and it wasn't until you realize you can get free labor that you turn them into slaves. As Dontrell said, you use religion, you misinterpret scripture, and so it goes back to it's the education, it's the mindset, And there was a post that I put on Facebook. And we as people, we spout stuff that we read on social media, and we don't do research behind it.
I agree.
And that we suffer a lot, right? So we talk about Black people and Christianity, and how it was how white men introduced us to Christianity, but the Ethiopians introduced the Bible 1,000 years before white people even came to Christianity in America, right? Yeah. So there's history, you know what I'm saying? You can go back to Simon of Cyrene, who was a Black man that helped Jesus at the cross, and we can go back even further, to the Babylonians and the Persians didn't go into Egypt and mess with the Egyptians. Why? Because they were a powerful people. You know what I'm saying? So we can go back and we can literally do our history, and I can cite you historians, I can cite you archaeologists, I can do all those things. And so for me, my perspective is a little different because I'm playing a different game with my son. You know, for me, the first thing that I gave him was his name. You know, his name means something. And my son will tell you, if you meet my son, he'll tell you what his name is. You can't call him any other, you can't call him knucklehead, you can't call him silly, you can't call him anything but his first and last name and his middle name. The second thing was I gave him a motto. You know, he knows it's love God, love yourself, and love people. And that's something I preach to him every time I see him. We rehearse that every single time. Those three things, because that's what's going to guide his life. He needs to make decisions. And the third thing is I'm writing a book, and I want to write a book to leave something for my son that if I pass away, he has my words. He always has it. He has a decision-making guide that he has when he needs to make decisions.
So, Cody Mack, you want to speak to that?
Yeah, let me speak to a couple of points really quick.
All right.
First, just to sustain my mental health during all this, I exercise my right to unplug, you know, so I don't have to watch the news every day. You know, I've gone 4 or 5 days without watching the news at all, whether that be occupying my time with a book, movies, or just hanging out with the family. Like, it doesn't matter. When I feel myself getting to a point where I'm now feel like I'm starting to carry the weight of the world, even though I'm in the world, I don't have to carry the weight of it. It's not the things that we're dealing with it's not on me to fix. And so being inundated with them isn't healthy for me. So I understand that, and I choose not to engage. From a parental standpoint, I don't really talk to my 6-year-old. He's 6. You know, like he's following the 12-year-old's lead. I worry about my 12-year-old, and I have conversations that are very much about the environment he's growing up in is much different than what I grew up in, whereas he's one of, you know, a handful of Black kids in this dual language Mandarin program. It's charter school, so you have to apply to get in, so all the parents are kind of engaged. So for that reason, it's a really good foundation. And in his world, I can honestly say, you know, he's still at the age where all the kids are just kids. It's not that they don't see color, but they don't have an issue with it. But it's my job to impress upon him that the world he lives in isn't reflective of the greater society. And he still needs to understand the systemic challenges he will face.
Right.
And so, you know, without acknowledgement and understanding of your history, is going to repeat itself. And so it's my job to tell him about experiences I've had, experiences that other Black men have faced in the past, and kind of what's gone on through the history, so that he doesn't get wrapped in this false belief that the world is what he sees now. But he knows how to handle the world, the greater world that he's going to step into as he grows. One thing I try to remind him is he's 12. Right now, you're a cute kid. In 2 years, you will be viewed as a threat as a Black man at the age of 14. Like, the size and your presence is going to mean something totally different to white people than it does then than it does now. And you need to understand that. And he's like, I get it. No, you don't. Like, you get it based on the lens of the parents of your friends that have watched you since you were 6 grow in the school system. You don't get that from the world that doesn't know you. And as your chest starts to fill out, your biceps and triceps start to come in, and you start looking more physically imposing. You need to understand the position that puts insecure others in, you know, whether that be the police or, you know, white store owners, you know, just people in society. So it's my job to impress upon him how that may be perceived, so he can then understand how to maneuver. And the last point I'll make is I'm really big about, when I'm speaking to him and disciplining him, that he kind of stands still and can just take whatever's happening in the moment without fidgeting and getting nervous and having a bunch of involuntary movements, I guess, kind of being cognizant of how he's reacting, and letting him know. Like I've had a gun pulled on me by the police on several occasions, and understanding with those slight muscle twitches and appearance of being nervous and having something to hide is justification for escalation by the police. And so I have to have these conversations. It is the talk, and the talk is still necessary. And I find problem with anyone who deems the talk unnecessary at this point. Like, it's a reality that has to happen to this day.
Cody, Mac, man, you really brought that one home, man. I appreciate you for even your transparency, man, with what's going on with your son, because I mean, when you said that, I thought about my son and how I when I tell him those things, he's at an age where he can receive it quicker. Like you were saying with the body movements not appearing. We had the whole conversation like, well, Dad, I shouldn't have to prove that I'm not nervous in that situation. I said, yeah, you shouldn't have to, but the world we live in requires that you do. And so,
Exactly.
so I just appreciate you sharing that, man, because I think that's one element that we can, because you, like I said, we can look at it all day long and say, that's not right, that's not right. Okay, true enough. You know what I'm saying? We got policymakers and we got people, activists and all of them fighting for those type of things. But while we're still in it, you got to know how to conduct yourself. And whether it is right or wrong that you have to do this, I want to see you come home at the end of the day. So this is just what we have to go through. But RJ, we're going to swing it over to you, man. And I know, and I wanted to save you for last because I know that currently you do not have a biological child. Is that correct?
Correct.
Okay. So I wanted you to still speak from it, from your perspective. But also, I know that you do mentor other young men as well. So if there's an element that you can add in and speak to that as well, then you can. But just from your personal, person, just share with us.
I mean, I almost echo everything that you guys said, especially Cody, when you said exercising your right to unplug. I definitely do that. I think information is one of the most powerful things that are out there. Information either breeds faith or it breeds fear. It's either or. So I look at information just like I look at anything else that I put in my body. You know what I mean? Like the food that I eat, whatever I drink, whatever, information is the same thing. Too much of it is going to damage something. So I definitely agree with you on that. I exercise that right to unplug or whatnot. On the other side of that, I don't have any biological kids. I do have a whole host of nieces and nephews. A whole lot. But I also have, young men that I've mentored, that I currently mentor. And just like you guys are saying, I tell them the same thing. One of the things that I always tell them, because I think if we tell them, don't be nervous, don't be this, but I think in the heat of that moment, when the police pull you over and you didn't do anything, the anger and the emotion that comes up is different. It's almost like when you were growing up, if you guys had that uncle or the dad or whoever that taught you how to fight. That's all well and good, but it's different when you get in that first fight. You know what I mean? When somebody, even when I see these dudes, and they on these things and they punch in the bag and they punching these pads, it's cool until somebody on the other side swinging back. You shouldn't have to do that. But I think for black men and younger black men, what we have to tell them is that this is not you dumbing down. This is your strategy to overcome.
Mm-hmm.
So I think if they start to look at it like that, as not a way to dumb myself down, not a way to make myself feel inferior, but, Officer James or Officer whoever it is, okay, yep, I'm going to comply, but I got your whole name in my head. You don't have to tell them I got your whole name or I'm going to report. I got your whole name in my head, and when I go home, then I go forward. I had a situation a couple of years ago. I was leaving Jamel's barbershop early on a Saturday morning, and I was in a BMW, and I got pulled over down the street from the barbershop, 2 white police officers. And the crazy part about it was where that Kroger used to be, I'm passing them. They're coming out of the Kroger. So I passed them. They turned their light on, got behind me. I pulled over in the Dunkin' Donuts. They come to the car, and I got a license to carry, so I have a weapon in the car. That's the first thing I said. I said, listen, I got a weapon in the car. I got a license to carry. How would you like for me to proceed? Yep. So long story short, I get out of the car, and the guy tells, I said, so why do you guys pull me over? He said, you don't have car insurance. And I'm like, well, how would you even know that? And you weren't even, you put your lights on before you got behind me. But I said, no problem. If you'll let me go back in my car, I can prove I have car insurance. Long story short, they took my gun, they put it in their car. When they verified I had car insurance, they said, well, we saw two white officers. We're sorry we bothered you. Have a good day. They're about to leave with my gun in their car.
Yep.
So I said, hey, wait a minute. I said, I don't get my weapon back. Oh, I'm sorry about that. So my thought process was, this is about to be some injustice, but I can't win this on the street. So I already had a plan. If you guys take this gun and pull away, I'm calling 911. I'm calling a lawyer. I'm calling family. Listen, they got a gun that's registered to me. I don't know who they about to go around the corner and kill.
Yep. That's
but
right.
I'm reporting this because this gun is registered to me. So I think we got to get our young men in the mindset of, we're telling you this, not so you can cower down, but we're telling you this as a strategy so that you can get the justice that you deserve.
As RJ and Cody alluded to, and even Reggie just chimed in and alluded to, is that even though there's a different set of rules, and because they are the puppet masters who are controlling the system, then they can change the rules at any moment. So even if you are in that situation, as you guys were saying, you can't justify it in that moment. You can't prove your point in that moment because they can easily change the game, switch it up on you, and make it to work to their advantage. So I want to thank all of our panel guests for joining us today. And until next time, I want you to remember that a real man is not defined by what he does or what he has, but who he is to the people that love him.